hard to watch is right, ladies and gentlemen. And there was a difference between Sunday's loss and the other 32 the Patriots have experienced since Tom Brady went to Tampa to win Super Bowls. Against Washington, the results really didn't matter. 3-6, 2-7. Patriots aren't going anywhere either way. They're out of it. And it's the first week of November. But while it was a meaningless game in the standings, it wasn't meaningless for the future because we're now into the case-making portion of the program. Can Bill Belichick make a case for why he should be in charge for the rest of the decade? Can Mac Jones make a case for why the Patriots shouldn't draft his successor? Can the organization make a case for why free agents would want to come here or fans want to keep watching? Nobody made a persuasive case against Washington, a team that held a fire sale earlier in the week. And the question is, was that the worst loss? Or was it Dallas or New Orleans or Las Vegas? When you have multiple options, that's a very, very bad sign. The situation is now critical. And here's the game plan for this program right here. See it? This is real life. Europe, hello. Keep it together, okay? That is a key that we're going to get to as well. And we're going to have Kevin Clark from ESPN joining us. He is an astute son of a gun. But here's another astute son of a gun. It's Alndrew Callahan from the Boston Herald. How are you, bud?
Good to see you, pal. Good to be back.
What did you make of what we saw on Sunday and my take on the fact that it's just fruitless?
I think you're spot on, and I think you felt it even before the ball was kicked. I mean, you look at the stands. They were the sparsest crowd that I had seen since I started covering the team all the way back in 2018. But there was just an apathy to this. Boos after the second drive that were half-hearted. You get a lead in the second half. You're coming back closely, and no one seemed to care. The Commanders had punted on this season and yet still beat you on Sunday, and it looked like the fans were open to both outcomes before the game even started. This was something I'd never even experienced before, and that was before the game even opened.
Yeah, and I think when we get to our poll, you'll be surprised at some of the answers. Meanwhile now, our friend Rich Eisen brings us into Quickfire, which is presented by your local New England Honda dealers. Rich, hit it with your take on questions posed to Bill Belichick.
I don't know if you've heard this yet, but want to play Bill Belichick this morning.
Dude, I got the email. I got the email
like
from NFL Network, right? From NFL Network, from our assignment desk, from our editorial staff, and I couldn't believe the number of times he was asked about his job status and if he's coaching for his job this weekend in Germany. I have not heard this sound. This is unprecedented.
We still have people trying to come to grips with the simple fact that Bill Belichick isn't just on the hot seat, as I told Rich back in July. He's on the plank.
He is, and he was only asked twice. And the question first was, have you had any conversations with ownership about having assurances about your job? He deflected. Okay, well, do you feel in any kind of way your job is in danger going into Germany where you could come home and be 2-8? And Bill deflected. So this kind of offense to Rich's sensibility seems to go against the fact that he's been at the NFL Network since the NFL Network started 20 years ago. And anytime you see coaches who win 45% of their games or GMs who build a bad roster over a 4-year span, Bill's done both. Of course they're in hot water or on the plank.
Yeah, and I texted Rich and he said, well, we're not talking about Rich Kotite here. And I get that, but we're not talking about 2-8 in a vacuum. We're talking about a pattern since Brady left. All right, meanwhile, here's Mac Jones when asked about his receivers the other day after the Washington game.
How do you feel about your chemistry right now with your receivers and your ability for the offense to make it plays with the weapons that you have available?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's just a lot of different guys each week.
Was that wrong? Was that wrong? He also pointed out to Mike Giardi that it was a great question when he noted that there's not that many open windows for Mac to throw to.
No. It was totally fine. Bring on the honesty. This is a kid who we've been trying to pry open with a crowbar, any kind of insight into what he's thinking. Later in the press conference, by the way, Tom, I think we heard the most interesting thing Mac Jones has ever said, which is, hey, you saw Forbes? We think that guy sucked, and we kept trying to throw at him, and he got the better of us. But so what? It happens. Mac has never said anything like that before. So we in the media, and I think fans at home, should always be open to honesty. We've just become so used to the deflections and the nonsense and the cliches and the neutrality coming out of Foxborough. If that's how he feels, let us know.
A new day is dawning. Meanwhile, is a new day dawning for the Indianapolis Colts. They actually put up some numbers, these Colts. Gardner Minshew's in charge now, but look at those totals. They've put up 21, 31, 22, 23, 23, 37, 39, 38, 27. Patriots have only been over 20 total points. One time, Patriots will be in Germany in Frankfurt. Hot dog. We're going to have some fun with this one.
We are, I am, because I'm going to be in Frankfurt, having a Frankfurt. But look, if you look at this matchup, it's just like any other right now for the Patriots. They've got better players that are going to be problems for you. I mean, and let's even go back to last year. The Patriots had a better offense, a more talented roster, okay? Shaq Leonard on defense was calling out plays left and right like they were plot lines to Seinfeld reruns. Like Elaine's breaking up with him over here. Okay, George is going to be a marine biologist. This is a player who on defense is not even the best player. You have DeForest Buckner, who's blocking him for the Patriots, okay? Who's covering Michael Pittman, who's got 3 times the receiving yards of anyone on the Patriots. And I don't say this is going to be a drubbing. The Colts are favored by 1.5. But there's a good reason they're favored by that 1.5, even with Gardner Minshew at quarterback.
And I want to remind you where I said sing before breakfast. My mother used to say that. It was a song. Sing before breakfast, cry before supper. Sing before breakfast means we will be with you before this game right here for Pregame Live. Meanwhile, coming up, what do we got? Oh, we got Bill Belichick answering a question about whether guys were benched for disciplinary reasons before the game.
Jack Jones not playing for the first quarter, that was not disciplinary in nature.
We played all the corners. I think we played all the safeties. I think we played everybody on defense.
Nobody answers questions that aren't asked quite like Bill Belichick. Do we have signs of fraying with a locker room that might be starting to tune Bill out and act out?
I think so, because let's talk about Jack Jones and J.C. Jackson. These are players that have been empowered by Bill Belichick. So it's not only that after getting roasted at Miami, J.C. Jackson gives up 2 touchdowns. Jack Jones was at fault in the last touchdown that knocked him out at the very end. They don't answer questions to the media after this latest loss. But you have veterans like Adrian Phillips, who told my colleague at the Herald, Doug Kyde, hey, they played, so you're just going to have to go ask Bill or them. Because that was not Adrian Phillips' expectation, whether it was on performance or something that happened off the field. And yet here they are, because Bill traded for J.C. Jackson. He stood by Jack Jones throughout all of the legal trouble he had this summer and the beginning part of the year. So they feel like we can get away with whatever, whether that's on the field or off, and they do.
And we don't even know if they did anything. For instance, we got Demario Douglas in mothballs for 5 weeks because he fumbled on a great play by a Miami Dolphin defender. Kayshon Boutte still has not extracted himself from timeout to come back and play football. We still don't know why Malcolm Butler was sat. Tyquan Thornton benched. He might have deserved it, but it's Bill's whimsical way of doling out discipline is so odd. Meanwhile, I want to take a look at this. This is Caleb Williams, who may be the first overall pick. He's defending Heisman Trophy winner. This is what he had to say after a game in which the USC Trojans lost, and he came undone a little bit at the end.
I want to go home and cuddle with my dog and watch some shows. I don't know what I like, who lost the game. Something to work hard for throughout months, years, to have big games like this, try and go win, play your best. Each and every one of us. We came out with a loss today. So emotionally, I want to go home and I want to lay with my dog.
All right, here is Caleb Williams. As you see, he hops up in the stands. Teammates probably heading back into the locker room, and falls into the arms of his mom, and then soon begins sobbing uncontrollably, which is a sad sight, but it's also kind of a lot, I think, for a regular season game for a team that isn't about to win a national championship in the first place. Is that a lot? Was that a lot?
Yes. And look, we can be a lot here in the media, the toxic discourse of, you got to man up, stuff it down. We're in the trenches and equating football to military activities or being in battle. But look at his teammates' reaction in that same clip. They're looking down. They're looking away. That's the danger with comments like that. Or how is this guy going to react when the things get tough? This wasn't his last game at USC. It wasn't a championship game. And he goes into the stands to literally cry to his mommy. And again, there's nothing wrong with that kind of emotion, but you have to have an awareness and to separate yourself from the team. If you want to cry, go be with them. That would be my point. And so it's hard for NFL front offices going, you're going to be the face of the franchise. You need to be the hardest working guy and our quarterback, handling the ball every single play. If we lose in week 4, are you headed up the tunnel or up to row C, seat 6?
And that's the thing is you're going to be the leader of 30-year-old men with families in the locker room looking at you for guidance to follow your lead. You're going to be dealing with coaches who are in their 40s and 50s, and their livelihoods are going to be in your hands. How do you react to adversity? And this was not a shining example of the best way to do it. Cry all you want. No one is criticizing shedding of a tear by a man. This is not 1930. But you do have to understand you're part of a bigger picture. All right, meanwhile, time now for From the Stands, brought to you by Shaw's, perfecting the art of fresh. Ask the question, with the Patriots circling the drain, how do you feel about the situation? Mad! I'm mad! Not mad, just disappointed, sad about what's coming, numb. Is this apathy? Here's our guy, Mike. Said, I'm disappointed because of what appeared to be positive changes to the staff and position players. I agree. Okay, this was reinforced by media reports during camp. They were going to be better than previous year. Okay, I bait and switched you. Sorry. ZC. I'm excited in a sick kind of way. I've accepted the current state of the Patriots for what they are. The worse it is in the immediate, the greater probability for change. I'd rather stick this year. You can read the rest. Meanwhile, Gary, I'm actually mad. Bill didn't want to change. He really didn't. It was always bring in former players and overpay scrubs. Tired of his ego. And really, when you underscore that, there was a part of Bill Belichick who actually thought things were heading in the right direction at the end of 2022.
Yeah, I just look at that graph as like the stages of grief. You know, everyone who's mad is going to come around a little bit and it's going to be like a clock. And I think everyone is going to get to apathy because how long can you stay mad? I think folks have been mad since the Dallas loss, as they should have been. That was a calamity, 38-3. What do they follow that up with? 34-0. Worst home shutout in franchise history. We still have a half season to go, folks.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute right after the break because I want to talk about the rest of the season. And those were smiles we saw in August. There will be conversations between these two principals over the next 8 weeks. How will they go? We'll talk about it after the break. Double growth potential, brought to you by Dr. Matthew Lepreste. Look younger, feel younger, get your hair back with Leonard Hair Transplant Associates. Bill Belichick chasing Don Shula. You see him, he's got 16 to go. He's past Hallis. He's past Reed. I know he has been. Can he catch Shula? He's not gonna get him. You know why? It's time for my slant. Fights out! The Patriots need to go undefeated in their final 8 games to have a realistic shot at the postseason. They need to go 7-1 to finish over 500. Stop giggling. November and December used to be when the Patriots would finish with a flourish. Since 2019, though, they're 8-14 in December. Meanwhile, Robert Kraft talked in March 2022 about being thirsty for playoff wins. Robert?
It bothers me that we haven't been able to win a playoff game in the last 3 years.
Playoffs? Talk about playoffs? They happen to win a game. We're looking at 8 weeks of going through the motions for this with what appears to be a lame duck coach and a lame duck quarterback. This is something the Patriots have never before experienced, something ownership has never experienced. They are now mainlining what it's like to be irrelevant. And the question becomes, can they keep it together for 2 months? Can Bill Belichick, the greatest coach in NFL history, and I stand on that, make it to January when he knows the postseason is out of the question and his unprecedented run is quite likely coming to an end? Does he become bitter, resigned, angry, defensive? He is an older gentleman. We tend to speak our minds. Does Bill look at all the Lombardis and think to himself, none of those would be here if it wasn't for me, and now I'm just supposed to punch the clock? Can he make it to the end without blowing a gasket? Then there's Kraft. 23 years ago, he was the only guy who was going to give Bill Belichick a chance. And then he gave him the keys. And then he left all the decisions to Bill. And now the car's in the ditch. Does Kraft look at the product and the results and the road back and blow his own gasket? Can these two men stop it from becoming a bitter and ugly split, if that's what's in the offing? There's no guarantee. But I think we all hope that they can, because this isn't the end. It's the end of something, but not everything. Bill O'Brien spoke today about the football team.
A lot of key drops in big situations. How frustrating was that to see, and how do you coach that out of the receivers you have?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, those guys, they need to go out there and catch the ball. I think some of those catches were very tough. That's the way it is. You either, again, like I said, it comes down to those 6 to 8 plays.
If I'm disappointed, anybody would be myself, not having our guys ready to go and to play at a high level. But, we go out there and we compete, we play hard, and, when we leave a few plays here, a few plays there, if we could just make them, it'd be the difference in the game for us.
Talk about torturous. for Troy and for Bill O'Brien. You put the guys out there, they're in positions to make plays or in position to make blocks. There's decent plays called, and they just go kablooey. Helpless.
How long until Troy takes the snap? I mean, we were down to 3 receivers for the entire second half on Sunday because they benched Tyquan Thornton. Kayshon Boutte, still a professional, healthy scratch, just cashing checks. I mean, that's, I'm being facetious here, but that's how bad it is. They've been asked to make chicken salad all season, and now they can't even pass that off. It's as bad as anyone could have thought, and then a little bit worse.
Exactly. Meanwhile, defensively, there's nothing really to write home about. That Brian Robinson touchdown was eye-opening the other day. Here's Gerard Mayo, defensive coach, linebackers coach, talking about moving on.
From a coach's standpoint, honestly, like my motto, and I know the rest of the defensive coaches, our motto is, all right, let's change the page. Whether we win or lose, once we get done with the corrections from the film, we change the page, and I think that's been good for all of us.
Well, it's page changing time, but we're still in the same book and still in the same chapter, and this chapter is bleak. So how does it end? Will Gerard Mayo, in your estimation, have a good resume to present to Robert Kraft if indeed Bill Belichick is the one who's leaving and Gerard is the heir apparent?
I think it depends on the buy-in from the defense, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about now. If you're playing for pride, how does that show on Gerard's side of the ball? Now, if you go to 4-13, as right now they're tracking to do, I have to wonder, as close as Gerard might be to ownership and as good of a coach as he might be, do the Crafts really want to pick up a brick from the rubble of this season to be the foundation of next year? I don't know. That's a hard sell to me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look at what is unfolding here in New England from a distance?
As a football observer, someone who studies football history, somebody who studied the Belichick era really closely, as much as anybody can outside of that market. You guys know far more than I do, but I try from a national perspective to really dig into what happened there over the past 25 years. And from that perspective, it kind of breaks my heart. Only because, and here's why, and I don't want anyone to get to jump on me, but it feels like the guy who always had the next idea is out of ideas. And that, to me, is someone who was always writing about the next idea or what he was able to do to gain an edge, whether that's via roster, whether that's via defensive scheme, offensive scheme. Hey, we're going to use this guy. I actually just heard, I was listening to a hockey podcast, no big deal, but Kenny Albert was on there and he was talking about how Belichick told him that they were the first team in Detroit when he was with Detroit 50 years ago to put 2 tight ends in the field, and they still call it the Detroit package because of that. And it's like he's always been at the cutting edge of football. And for me to see this team now, which not only has no personnel, no quarterback play to speak of, but just no ideas, that to me is a football tragedy. You knew this day would happen. Mm-hmm. Eventually it happens to every great coach, but I'm surprised at how bad it's gotten this quickly.
There are going to be 6 or 7 head coaching openings maybe by the end of this year. Are there going to be teams that are clamoring for Bill Belichick, calling Robert Kraft and saying, hey, Robert, we know it didn't work out all that hot for you guys this year. Would you be interested in trading us Bill Belichick for a high-end draft pick? Do you think there are going to be teams out there that are interested in Belichick that way?
So the interesting rumor last week was the Commanders were going to trade for him, and Josh Harris was going to unload the Brinks truck for Bill Belichick. Well, Bill Belichick just lost to Ron Rivera, who's about to get fired. So I don't know how that changes things if you're Josh Harris. The problem for me is that if you're Josh Harris and you pay for Bill Belichick in draft picks and money, Bill Belichick is going to want the same power and runway he has now. And I'm not sure I would grant that. I would not let Bill Belichick run my drafts. I'd certainly let Bill Belichick. There's 2 things I would do. Either pay him a ton of money to be my kind of football czar and give me big picture, 35,000 feet viewpoints, almost like Bill Parcells was a little bit in Miami, with a little less control of the draft, getting evaluated in there as GM, or just coach the team. Just coach the team. Somebody else buys the groceries, and we'll give this to you, and you come up with the schemes, and you teach the guys in our building ball. What I would not do is give him the same role that he has now, where he just oversees everything and does everything. I think he can oversee things, but not do everything.
Caleb Williams is the defending Heisman Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. It's fine to show your emotions. It's fine to cry. We all understand that. But his post-game Saturday night seemed a little much. And when teams are going to scrutinize How well does he identify with his teammates? How well does he go to his teammates first and share his emotions with them? And how well does he deal with adversity? I wonder if Saturday night and Caleb Williams in general are going to take a hit in this upcoming draft, and will he drop?
I don't think he'll drop. I think that's where your scouts who are on the ground. I mean, it's funny because everybody is, the last month or so, everybody's been kind of joking about the value of a GM or a director of college personnel going to games and being in the press box and getting that press box food. But you got to be on the ground in order to understand what Caleb Williams means to his locker room. And I don't know. And I can't glean that from what I see on TV. You know, I think a lot about, this is a little bit of a different bucket, but like I think a lot about Dan Campbell, where everybody's making fun of Dan Campbell's public persona when he first gets the job, biting kneecaps and all that stuff. And then I went to Detroit and everybody in Detroit is like, this is the most real dude on the planet. And like what you saw in the press conference, like we actually love that side of him, you know? And so with Caleb, I think it comes down to, I don't think he'll drop because of this. I do think that what scouts will ask the question is, you know, what's the, I don't know how to phrase this. I think scouts will see what his connection is with his teammates almost separate from what we see on TV.
You want to hear more of that? Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Find it on YouTube or your favorite podcasting apps. Thursday, we're going to have Bill Polian, former Colts executive, Hall of Fame executive, joining us on the pod. So get ready for that one too. Coming up, early edition.